More on this growing scandal at our very own City Hall, at London City Hall. Yesterday, we brought you the story of how city bylaw enforcement went into the London Music Hall and shut down an event featuring a porn star who was in town for shock stock. Now, there was no nudity that was featured or planned, as we heard from the organizer yesterday, but the head of bylaw enforcement for the city, Orest Katolyk, told me on the air that this was a matter of law enforcement, not morality, that the organizers should have done their homework and made sure they were staging this at a properly licensed venue, essentially one of the city's 5 strip clubs. Now, it was later in the interview, in my discussion with Mr. Katolyk, when I asked him why the city shut down this event but allows something like the Firefighters Hall of Fame calendar night to go on, that Mr. Katolyk drew a distinction that has got many claiming discrimination. Here is the part of the interview that has gone viral on the net. Have a listen.
The fact is that this event was with a porn star who was advertised to strip. And we told the promoters there's 5 locations you can go to, and these are set by city council, and they chose not to.
Okay, again, as we just heard from them, though, there was never any plan for nudity. And just to draw a real sharp contrast for us, why is a Hall of Fame calendar night okay at, say, the Western Fair Progress Building, but this is unacceptable, this event at the London Music Hall?
Well, comparing a porn star to some firefighters that are doing something for charity isn't really a comparison at all.
Not valid in your opinion at all, that we've got people on stage who are taking off their clothing, there's some degree of nudity, and that there's a paid crowd or audience there?
We feel there's no comparison at all.
There's Orest Katolyk on the show yesterday. That clip, as I mentioned, has gone viral all over YouTube and Facebook, and has got many people asking, by what principles do London bylaw enforcement go about their business? Is it the law or discrimination? Joining us once again this morning is the organizer of the London Shock Stock, James Bilikowski, joins us on MacArthur in the Morning on AM 980. James, once again, good morning.
Good morning.
Your reaction after you joined us yesterday, hung up the phone and heard Orest Katolyk, do you feel that the city indeed did discriminate against you and your event?
Well, a couple things. I want to try to keep things away from mentioning the name of the event because Mr. Katolyk's argument is that this is all a publicity stunt, that we're crying the blues and it's all sour grapes and whatnot, where if he would have done his homework, the bylaw is clearly posted, and there's nothing in the bylaw that says city employees or friends of his or firemen are exempt from the bylaw. The bylaw is cut and dry. It's the same bylaw we were read, sent, so everyone has to follow it. You know, I can't build an alligator moat on my front lawn because I'm Facebook friends with Joe Fontana. He has to follow, and he admitted that he's biased, and he's judging events based on his own personal preference.
Well, from that interview yesterday, they shut down your event, it seems, because firefighters are more respected than porn stars. When he says you can't compare a porn star to a firefighter, that seems to be the real ignition point here.
So exactly. So the next time a prostitute's about to be murdered, the police aren't going to show up because she's less seen by society as a lower class citizen. This is just, it's insane. This whole matter it eclipses the event itself. And to be even clearer, the Joanna Angel striptease was just a small 5-minute element of 3 days of horror movie related events. The concert went on without a plan. She wasn't allowed to perform, but everyone went on and said it was the greatest horror convention they've ever seen. And then you have accolades from around the world, and you have a guy in charge of policing the bylaw, saying that the bylaw is only the bylaw for certain people.
So he is making, in the bylaw, the London bylaw enforcement officers, you believe, are making character judgments, not enforcing the law just equally to everybody and how it's written.
Exactly. And if you play the tape again and listen even closer, he first avoids your question about the firemen the first time, and then he uses the term generally. Well, generally we hold these events. He says it very quickly. Well, what's that mean? Generally, I try not to shoplift. Generally, I try not to steal cable. Like this is a guy who's supposed. You don't use terms like generally when you're in charge of being the head bylaw enforcement agent of the city.
Mr. Katolyk, as we just played there, rejected the comparison between your event and what happens at the Hall of Fame calendar night. But do you think that there's a case to be made there that these are similar events?
Well, there's no real, you don't really need my judgment. People that listen to your show, they just need to read the bylaw. The bylaw clearly states that I was in violation. I openly admit that I was in violation of the law. I was misinformed. I thought that even a partially closed striptease was still legal. They told me that I was in violation. I agree that, but you can't say that a porn star can't do a striptease in a G-string, but a fireman can. There's no distinction in the bylaw. The bylaw makes no such revision or it's cut and dry. If that's the law, then that's the law. You can't say that a fireman is exempt from that law.
So the Hall of Fame calendar night should be under the same restrictions as your event, and if they're going to hold this, it shouldn't be at the Western Fair at the Progress Building, but should be at one of these 5 licensed establishments.
They should move it. I'm not saying move it because I'm 100% for the event. I don't want people to feel that I'm down on the event. I'm just using the comparison because this thing happens in London every night of the week. Every rap band that comes to John Labatt Center has go-go dancers dressed like strippers. I mean, every nightclub has paid go-go dance performers from sponsors, from liquor companies and whatnot like that. There's hot body contests all over London. All are clearly in violation of this bylaw, but only my event was singled out. You know what I mean? And if that's fine, but if I'm going to be singled out, they have to follow the same rules for other people, and they can't go on the radio and say that the law only applies to a certain class of people, meaning that an adult entertainer, a porn star, is a lesser class of citizen than a person that isn't that.
Is that why you believe, James, that your event was targeted because it was promoted with a quote-unquote porn star?
Yeah, and it's facts yesterday that it was promoted as a nude show. The appearance on FM 96, she clearly said strip tease, not nude strip show. Of course, there's a marketing insinuation. We wanted people to think that perhaps it would go further. But, to be clear again, we suffered no financial loss from the performer in question not dancing. This was not us crying the blues over us losing money. Nobody wanted a refund. Everyone had a great time. With the SWAT team there, everyone else knew there was buzz around there. Why isn't there? I want your listeners to call City Hall and have them itemize the tax dollars that were wasted on an autograph signing convention in London. SWAT team, fire inspectors, 3 plainclothes police over how much bylaw enforcement offers throughout the weekend. This never goes on. If Bobby Orr comes to town, they don't spend that kind of money on that.
Are you planning to sue here, James? You feel obviously like you've been targeted, singled out, discriminated.
We're not an event that's asking London for a scoreboard or anything. This is put on by 3 guys that do it out of love for the city, love to try to do an event that's different. And we're getting the railroad, and everyone should be furious about this. We got a guy that's paid to sheriff the law, openly saying the law doesn't apply to anyone else. It's bigger than a horror movie convention. I mean, the horror movie convention was so small in the scheme of things. I mean, yes, we did way better than the first year. But people should rethink London on this. This is not acceptable.
Do you think this will have an effect on festival business in the city, which, of course, brings with it a lot of tourism, restaurant, bar business?
I love the city. I've lived here my whole life. I just think people should rethink the people that we have in charge. And if we want laws that can be overturned or ignored by the people that are paid to protect them.
James, I appreciate your time. Thanks once again for joining us.
Thanks again.
All right. 643-2222. Is London bylaw enforcement applying the law in a discriminatory manner, picking and choosing when they are going to enforce the law after a porn star's performance at the London Music Hall this past weekend was shut down just on a rumor of nudity? Meanwhile, we have things like Hair going on at the Grand Theatre that does have warnings in advertised nudity, yet is allowed to continue. 643-2222. Here's Jake in London. Jake, good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm okay, thanks. Go ahead with your take.
I would like to say I'm one of the co-organizers of the show with James of Shock Stock.
Okay.
I handle more of the financial end of things, the vendors, everything like that. And over the past few days, a lot of our vendors have contacted us, thanking us for having a great time. And the only one suggestion that they ask is that we move it out of London. We never had that last year. We are getting people saying, things would run smoothly in other cities. And one thing that James said before is we do want to stick to our guns. We want to keep this in London, but the whole thing, and that's why he brings up the question. It's not about the show; it's about the bylaw enforcement.
Yeah, it's about the law, right? Because the law is the law, and it should apply to everybody equally.
And it's not just this one law. I mean, there's plenty of bylaws that have been overlooked in the city in the past. I mean, you look at the occupiers, giving them months to kind of move along and everything like that. So, I mean, it isn't the fact that, it's playing favorites. Is that there are these bylaws, they do let them slip. There are certain situations where they feel they need to enforce and when they don't need to enforce. But I mean, like, again, they're choosing their battles, and it's not a good thing for the people, and it's also not a good thing for the city, because you don't want, it's bad. It's bad for everyone, right?
Well, it's bad for business here. An event like yours and others attracts tourism to the area. It's good for hotels, restaurants, bar business and such, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, and again, it's not even the business end of things. It is the tourism end of things. People, this city is branded as a very conservative city, and
a tough city to do business in.
It is a very tough city to do business in. Now, by doing things like this, it's making it more difficult.
Well, I think, and tell me if I'm wrong here, but there's two big problems. One is that the city moved in on basically a rumor that something might happen, that nudity might occur. And do you feel that they shut down this event prematurely?
I think they absolutely did. They stood there and they waited, and it wasn't the whole thing. Is the bylaw officers didn't say, if she goes on stage and shows nudity, we're going to fine you and shut this down. It was, if she shows up on stage and does basically anything that they were going to shut. They said, they made the comparison. They said, we've had Chippendale dancers who didn't even take off fully nude, and we've had the city has successfully fined and closed the event. So, I mean, and that was a huge intimidation factor for us. We didn't want the show to end for anyone. We had a big band that we'd flown in from Italy to perform. She was supposed to do a quick thing before, and if they would have decided to do that to us, it would have ended everything for us.
And as well, the law, it seems, again, doesn't apply equally to everybody. We've got, as I just mentioned, Hair on stage at the Grand Theatre, where there's nudity at the end of that production of that play. Would you expect London Bylaw, considering the experiences you guys had, to go in there and shut that down?
No, absolutely not. I mean, it is not so much of a comparison, because that is more of a theatrical event, but at the same time, what she was planning on doing, it was a more theatrical event. We had a makeup artist doing her full up. When it was more of a dance performance than any kind of a strip show. But because of the nature of who she was and what she stood for, that's when people decided they needed to intervene.